So in this video, we are finally going to be firing up the Chevelle Turbo LS project. I've done a lot of work off camera. From the last video till now, there's a lot of stuff that I did work-wise, and I didn't videotape it because I just wanted to get it done. So we'll just do a quick walk around of some progress. But basically, I had a goal in mind that I wanted to get this thing fired up before winter, because again, the engine's got to come out and I got to do other work, sheet metal work and some work on the firewall. So unfortunately, everything's got to come out. So I really wanted to fire it up to check for leaks, make sure everything works. And I kind of ran wires temporarily just to make sure it functions how I want. I don't want to tidy everything up and then go, oh man, I forgot this wire, or I don't need this wire. So this is just a good milestone at this point. So let's just get right into this video. All right, so here's the state of the car right now. You can see the wiring is a freaking mess, but let's go start at the back and I'll show you what's going on. Peek in here, wiring mess. All right, so here we are in the trunk. I had to relocate the battery here in the trunk because of the intercooler plate. There's just too much stuff up front, okay? So mounted the box, and I mounted it on this side, the driver's side, because this side has a thing for the spare. I plan on putting a spare in here, and it just wouldn't sit good right here, okay? So anyway, all these wires are just connected. I didn't trim any of the lengths. I will tidy this all up later. It's just for getting it running. Okay, so I have the battery grounded to the frame underneath. Okay, so it's a short ground to the frame. Okay, the power wire, the positive wire, goes all the way here. I made a little plate, and that thing right there you see is a little fuse, mega. It's a fuse. It's a 175 amp fuse. They make them all the way up to 600 amps or whatever. So this is 2-gauge wire, both for positive and ground. And I feel that since that I am routing the positive cable inside the cab, underneath the carpet, I want it fuse protected, obviously. If there's a short, it'll blow that fuse and everything's cool, right? So it's mounted there. And then above that is the VaporWorks controller. I made a little plate, put some riv nuts in there, and I got to take that apart and paint it and maybe put some clamps on there to tidy up all these wires. But anyway, that thing lives there. So it's hooked up directly to the battery. And then the wiring for the fuel pumps and the fuel pressure sensor is all right there. So that all worked out. The only problem I had is there is an adjustment pot on there. I was turning it the wrong way. So I initially fired this thing up at 75 PSI fuel pressure. I couldn't get any lower. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Well, the cable's blocking the instructions on the box. I was turning it the wrong way, so I had to make the correct adjustment for the fuel pressure and got it down to 60 PSI. I am splitting the fuel pressure sensor signal to the Holly. So you see that little Wago connector right there. I just have it set up like that to make sure it all works. So, yep, all the wiring is going to pass right through there. I'm going to have to get a grommet for that. So that summarizes everything back here. This is a 10-year-old battery. I looked at the date, 01. It's still going, barely. I have to keep it on a charger. Went to the store, batteries are like freaking $200 nowadays, so I'm just going to hold off until spring. Okay, in here, took the whole back seat apart. All the wires come in here, and the battery cable, what I did is I put a bulkhead, drilled a 1 1/4 inch hole for that bulkhead, so that just pokes through and gets power to the starter. Okay, and then all the wiring I just fed through the window for now, so we can just get this thing running. All right, over here I kind of took apart the whole engine harness, the wiring harness, and I wanted to label all the wires. There's some wires that I can remove. I'm going to have to add some wires. some of these connectors look really questionable, so and wires, so I want to redo some of it. And also I want to put a relay fuse distribution block up here that I'm going to build for headlights, the horn, an ignition source, and all that good stuff. Okay, so I mean, I'm planning that out right now, and I had to take this all apart. Here's the headlight harness. I'll be building a new heavy-duty harness with relays because I got new H1, H4 headlights. So this is a freaking mess over here. What I added over here is some bus bars. So I got a positive bus bar and a negative one, which you can't see, it's in there. Basically, the power distribution on the stock 70 Chevelle was up on the core support here. In 72, they moved it to the firewall to increase voltage to the dash area. So I went ahead and did that, and I'm just cleaning things up and replanning, just doing some electrical upgrades, okay? So all these wires are a freaking mess, but hey. Okay, so there's the bulkhead popping out of the firewall, and there's one cable going to the starter, which I will need to protect with some kind of heat sleeving later on. The purple wire there is for to engage, to trigger the solenoid on the starter. And then the other cable is the battery charge wire. Okay, it sends current back to the battery from the alternator, or from the distribution, from the bus bar, sorry. I went ahead and fully welded up all the exhaust, and then I heat wrapped it with this DEI titanium lava wrap. I put the O2 bung right there, so it's very vertical, and then it kind of throws the wire right over in that area. I thought that looked pretty clean, so that's that. Okay, now I want to talk about the engine management, or the ECU, and the harness and all that. I haven't talked about that at all up until this point, and what I went with is the Holley Terminator X. Okay, so here it is. I just have it sitting right here. This thing comes with the ECU, this handheld, the harness, the wideband, everything you need for about $1,000, which is a pretty good deal. It's like an entry-level system that they have to get you going. Okay, and it has 4 inputs and 4 outputs, which we'll talk about later. So when this came out, I was like, oh man, this is it. This is awesome, because I was originally going to go with HP tuners and get a harness made and all that. And anyway, so I'm really happy with this. I ordered it from Summit Racing, got in a few days, and as you know, Summit Racing has been helping out with areas of this build, so huge thanks to them for that. But anyway, I ordered this. They had it in stock because a lot of places didn't have this. There was like a shortage of these. Everything's on freaking back order nowadays. But anyway, let me talk about the install. It's really easy. Putting the harness on is cake because you can't really screw it up. The injector harness, all the wires are labeled. Like for instance, this one right here says cylinder 4. Okay, so you plug that into the injector for cylinder 4. This right here, MAT, manifold air temperature. I mean, and then the connectors are dummy proof. You can't plug it into the wrong area. So putting the harness on was a piece of cake. Obviously, I need to clean it all up. It's a freaking mess as far as tucking it up all nice and whatnot. So installing the harness is easy. Now, as far as loose wires, there's one that goes to the battery, one that goes to a switched ignition source, and this is from my old HEI. And then, again, I'm using these Wago connectors. I'm just getting this thing set up to run. What else? And then there's a green output wire that goes to your fuel pump. Now, this is good for 10 amps, but all I need to do is trigger the PWM controller in the back. So that PWM controller is only drawing very little current to get it triggered. So I might even get rid of this relay here. Anyway, so that's it. And then I tapped into the harness for the fuel pressure, which works. So that's awesome. And that's it. And then what you do is you go through this thing and you go through a little wizard, and we'll do that, and then it fires up, and that's it. Okay, I'm gonna fire up the Holly, turn the ignition on, and the screen will light up, and we will build a bass tune through the wizard. This isn't the first time I did it. I actually went through it, and then I deleted what I created, so I'm just gonna redo it on camera because I didn't catch it the first time. So it'll be a little different your first time. You're not gonna hear the fuel pump the first time, but in any case, let's just go through it. Alright, so it's fired up. Go to Wizards. Right here, Wizard. So we're going to do multi-port fuel injection. That's what we got. Next. GMLS. Next. 8 cylinders. Next. Firing order, only one option. We'll go in liters for engine displacement. And I have 5.3. Okay. Target idle speed, we'll go... we'll try 700, right? Camshaft specs. I'll go with number 2. That's the closest one, maybe. I'm probably right at the high end of this, low end of that, but I just went to number 2. I am 24 tooth. Fuel pressure, 60 psi. Injectors, other. And then, here's a little button, let me... Okay, Snake Eater Performance 850cc. Power adder type, turbo. Okay, map sensor, 2 bar. Okay, wide open throttle ignition timing at 0 psi. So that's no boost. So I'm just going to put 22. Okay. Timing retard per pound of boost. So we will go over here and notice how all these changes. So I could probably do 14 psi, 14 degrees, but I am going to be very conservative and do about that right there. Okay, maybe even a little more conservative. Whatever, 10 degrees. I'm gonna play with the tune after this is configured. Then we'll throw it on the software at a later time, and just this is just to get it running. Wide open throttle, target AFR at 0 psi. So we'll go 12.5. Okay. AFR offset per 7 psi of boost. So I'm looking over here. Let's see. I want to be in the 11.5 range at 14 psi. So that all looks good. Okay, boom, there we go, start. Okay, so now it's uploading the tune that we just created. And then please cycle the ignition to complete the operation. Okay, so we will do, I will cycle the ignition and then we'll do a TPS auto set. Okay, so we did the cycle. Let's do a wizard. TPS auto set. Make sure the ignition is on and engine is not started. Slowly press pedal to floor, then slowly release. Do this twice. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, here we are. I don't have a throttle cable hooked up, so I'm just going to do this slowly twice per the instructions. So slowly open, close, open, close. Now we'll go back over there and see if it's successful. And by the way, since we're here, I have this gauge for fuel pressure hooked up to the rail, and I will be adjusting it for 60 psi while it's running. All right, successful. Boom, now we can fire it up. Here goes nothing. cap. Okay, we're gonna fire it up again, and I made a few changes. First of all, the first start, my fuel pressure was at 75 psi, and then I finally figured out how to freaking adjust the pot. I'm down to 60 psi, and what I did is I deleted the first wizard I went through, the first tune, because I saw in closed loop compensation it was pulling 22% of fuel, and it may have went into learn because I didn't have the radiator fully full, and the coolant temperature went up. So once it gets to 160 degrees, it starts learning. Okay, and it went to 180, 200 because it was steam, not water. So I didn't have radiator hose clamps on here. I didn't have a radiator cap, which I now have. So I had to clean up some stuff. Also, I noticed that the IAC, the idle air control, was at 0%, and the idle was still above the target. So what that means is I think the throttle blade was open too much. So I went ahead and turned the screw such that it closed my blade just a little bit. So hopefully my IAC will get in the 5% range, 2 to 5% range, or whatever is needed, so it can bring down the idle. So those are the changes. We'll fire it up again, another cold start, and just get it a little closer, a little more dialed in. So yeah, let's try that again. Oh, and another thing, all the sensors worked fine except for my oil pressure. It was pegged at 100 psi. So what I did is I put in a new sender unit, and with it, even at when the engine wasn't running, it was pegged at 100 and running 100 psi. So I think the sensor, the sending unit was bad. I put a new one in, and with it not running, it's reading 0 psi. So I think we're going to be okay there. So those are the only changes. Closed loop, it's pulling 31% of fuel. It's pretty shaky, it needs to be tuned further, obviously. I was expecting higher oil pressure, 60 psi fuel. So I walk away for a few seconds and I hear and all the water just dumped out. And, I got this. So what I have here is just this adapter. It's cool bypass hose. Jeez, it's hot. So yeah, that guy just freaking blew off. This isn't heater hose. This is just garden hose, but, I'll have to fix that. But hey, man, that's the only bad thing that happened so far. There's no leaks, no fuel leaks, no oil leaks. All right, so it runs. It runs pretty good. Obviously, it's just been base tuned through the wizard. There's lots to do yet. However, this was huge, man. This is my first LS motor, and I rebuilt it on this channel for that matter. First time doing EFI anything, really. And it's amazing that you plug all this in, hook up a couple wires, set your fuel pressure, go through the wizard, and bam, it fires up. That is incredible. Also, they have software to where you can tune this on your laptop or computer or whatever that is much more capable than this handheld. And maybe we'll get into that in a later video. However, the cable that hooks up from here to your laptop so you can do real-time tuning, that's on back order through end of December. I actually have the motor mounts on back order as well. There's a ton of parts that are just out of stock and on back order, you know, supply chain issues and whatever. All right, so that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of how it sounds so far. But this was super exciting to get to this point. Now, before I pull the motor, some things I need to do is get the intercooler piping at least mocked up and tacked up, if not fully welded. I need a water tank for this air-to-water intercooler, and there's something else that I need to do before I pull it. But anyway, I gotta get those things. Oh yeah, and the tunnel, the sheet metal tunnel is coming in next week, so I'll get that mocked up prior to pulling the engine. So anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.